Okay, there we go.
We're live. We're live. Doing it live. Welcome to the Marketing Trench. We have no idea what we're doing. What does this button do? On today's episode, we're going to be talking about virtual assistants, and we may or may not be having a guest come on named Pavel Stepanov from Virtue Desk. His company helps recruit and helps people like you and me and others hire virtual assistants. So this topic came up because COVID has made it possible for a lot of people to work remotely, which means working virtually, and potentially has changed all of our comfort levels around hiring virtual assistants. Now, in my opinion, I actually have always viewed virtual assistants as sort of second tier, right? Like I would prefer to have employees. And the reason I would prefer to have employees is because I want control and I want them to feel like they're in the brand flow. I want them to be really just kind of a part of our culture, right? And so that's been my historic view of virtual assistants. But I think that view is changing. Scott has some thoughts on that. Pavel, welcome to the Marketing Trench. It's good to have you join us.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
So I was just saying that my view of virtual assistants has historically been that they're sort of second tier in preference to employees. Now, Scott wanted to weigh in on that real quick. Scott, we were talking about this beforehand. What was your thought on that?
I mean, I think it's a traditional way of thinking, but I think if the last year's proved anything, you can get almost anything done working virtually and working remotely. So I think that completely overturned this belief system that we have to have people in the room with us. And quite frankly, as a business owner, not having employees is not necessarily the worst thing I've ever heard. You know, I mean, when you're hiring employees, you've got more responsibilities, you've got more expenses. There's baggage that comes along with it. It's harder to fire them if they're not doing a great job. I mean, listen, I have a feeling that we're going to hear stories of a lot of people realizing you don't need to hire employees to get stuff done. And I think I completely agree with you. Yeah, I think that's where this conversation is going to go. And I think people are going to feel a lot better about that at the end of this.
So let's talk to you, Pavel. Who do you think a virtual assistant is for? Like, what kind of person should consider hiring virtual assistants?
Well, as Scott mentioned, last year taught us a lot of things, and even if you had in-house employees, and before COVID, 2020 kind of even put all your in-house employees turn them into virtual assistants, essentially, because they all working remotely. So any business that relies on help being there, whether it's an employee, contractor, or an assistant. And after the pandemic, everybody kind of turned into the virtual assistants. So I guess right now it's like any business owner who's leveraging time would basically be looking into getting a virtual assistant, whether it's for tedious tasks like database management or editing YouTube, creating YouTube videos or whatever you have, or even reaching out to your database. Those people would be getting virtual assistants for any of those tasks.
So I have a real estate agent I work with regularly who is now looking to hire a director of marketing for his small team. It's him and a couple people, and he's been thinking he should hire an employee. Do you think a virtual assistant is a better choice for something that's, full time and he's trying to kind of build a team?
Well, here's the thing. When you hire an employee, besides the cost of our regular hourly rate, we also, let's say right now, the minimum wage is, I don't know where you are located, but usually it's $15 an hour. Yeah, also look at the fringe benefits that you have to pay out. Sometimes when you hire an employee, you have to consider payroll tax, FICA tax that you have to pay. You have to pay benefits. Some companies provide 401k for their employees. So the cost of actually bringing talent is way more with an employee than with a virtual assistant where you would basically hire somebody for less. You save the money on overhead. You don't pay any of those, payroll taxes. You don't have to worry about the benefits. You can just, if you, let's say, hire from a U.S. company like VirtuDesk, like we are, you can just issue us 1099 at the end of the year, and that's it. You can still write them off as your business expense, like you would do with any marketing.
I have a question. So Dustin's question is this agent was thinking about hiring a marketing manager. So the presumption there, at least it sounds to me, is like this marketing manager will come in, kind of create some direction, and maybe even hire some people underneath them. Do you ever see situations where somebody will like hire a small team, like if it's more than one agent? And are there different levels, I guess, of experience of virtual assistants where you could hire somebody that could be a virtual manager and potentially even have additional assistants under them that they're managing? Do you see that?
Oh yeah, we do actually. Good example is Tristan Ahumada. He's the CEO of Lab Code Agents. He's got he's director of operations as a VA in the Philippines. He's running. And he's got a team under him that's actually doing all the work, and this guy's overseeing that. We also have a hybrid model here at my company where we have in-house staff and we have virtual assistants. Also, we have on the Filipino side, we have a sort of a director of operations as well that's running his internal team because they work in more of a global projects than like task by task. So yeah, it's absolutely, you can hire people who are more versed and more in the level of experience allows you to do that.
I think there's a lot of misconceptions about, maybe misconceptions is the wrong word, but like one of the things I've been asked is I want to hire somebody to work in-house, and what I pushed back with was, why do you need them at the office 24/7 if all they're doing is running ads? Like you're overpaying and you're overthinking what it is you want. But Dustin, you said it earlier, it's this illusion of control. I want to be in control of the process, and if they're in the office with me, then I can control the process.
Yeah.
Well, I think a little bit of it is illusion of control, but I think a lot of it is also, how do I know what I'm getting? Right? It's kind of scary to just hire somebody that, you can't see if they have weird habits or you don't know what they're doing.
See, but I also think that's a problem of the agent and not knowing what they want. You can't just like raise your hand and say, I want a virtual assistant. You have to know what it is you want them to take care of and be specific.
Exactly.
So Pablo, what advice do you have for people who are maybe working through your company or another company or hiring a virtual assistant directly? What some advice do you have for them to find the right virtual assistant for them?
Well, first of all, like anybody who comes in, that's the first question we ask them. Do you have any checklist of what needs to be done? What things you need in your business?
And then they say everything.
Yeah, exactly. So those are like 80% of people don't have any checklist, and a lot of them have no idea what needs to be done. Okay, so what we do, we sit down with them and we kind of like figuring out where their business is and where they needed to go. If they have a coach, that's great. That's awesome. If they work with a coach, because the coach would help them to kind of piece everything together and create an outline. If they don't have it, we provide them like with sample outlines that we have from more successful agents and show them this is the business plan that people have. So from the outline, you create the job description of what needs to be done. For example, this is your 6 months plan. This is your 90-day plan. This is your 30-day plan. Where, depending where you are in your business, this is what needs to be completed in order to actually get you to that level that you need it to be. And also, let's say you need like more prospecting, you need more ads, or you need any TC work. This is what needs to be done. Like, if a lot of people right now, what do we see? Big demand, people hiring video editors to edit the videos, to create Facebook ads, because people have no idea how to run Facebook ads, create any kind of marketing funnels through the CRM. So a lot of time virtual assistant comes in and they're basically thrown into this oblivion of tasks that need to be done. So they're getting overwhelmed, and the agent is not much help either with that. So it has to be more of a like a structured plan how to get things done.
Now, I have a quick question. So I'm in the mortgage side of the business. Do you see kind of the same sort of tasks? Do you work with both mortgage companies and real estate? Do you only work like in the real estate kind of vertical, or do you see much of? Do you have crossover like that?
Yeah, we do. We have crossover. We have customers from mortgage industry. We have, majority are real estate, but mortgage, it's a little bit tricky because a lot of originators, they cannot have non-employees, because of the compliance issues.
But for marketing and video editing and
marketing video, that's doable. Yeah, that's doable. Yeah, as long as they don't quote.
And kind of the reason I'm bringing it up is because mortgage people don't think like this a lot. They think that they can't hire people out. Agents, I think agents have a lot of coaches and virtual assistants is much more common. And that's kind of what I want some of my mortgage people to know. This is a super viable solution to a lot of things that you're not doing because you don't have time to figure out how to do it yourself.
Exactly. And we have mortgage people who actually hire for marketing purposes, basically, create the ads, do the video editing, basically reach out on behalf of the people and of the behalf of the LO and, but again, they cannot like prospect, obviously they cannot quote rates or anything like that, but marketing, it's done all the time.
Fantastic. So Dustin, we started this conversation because you basically said, I don't even know where to start to hire or train somebody. So demystify that for me, right? So what are your biggest concerns?
Well, okay. So
being an overwhelming control freak.
Well, that's all I got. So, hey, thanks for listening. So I'm big on culture. Right. One of the things that I care a lot about at my company is when people step foot in the office, they feel our modern, very clean, tech forward environment. We're also, we're a fun company. I mean, just earlier today, one of our employees was pranking another employee and it got really hysterical. And that's not typical for escrow companies. I mean, there are definitely some escrow companies like this, but my employees tell me, I've never worked for any other escrow company, but my employees who have tell me, most escrow companies are very buttoned up, very somber. And so I would want to make sure that, when I hired somebody, especially somebody in marketing whose job is to be a brand ambassador, that that they were part of the flow and they weren't just a mechanical Turk, right? They weren't just someone who was pushing buttons that I needed them to push, and I just don't want to push those buttons. So Pavel, how have you seen people acclimate virtual assistants to their culture?
Well, where we've seen, we have a good example. Her name is Janki Patel. She's from Bay Area. She's one of our customers, and she's got, I think, like 5 or 6 virtual assistants. And she built up that virtual culture that she has with the VAs, and she's she's having daily Zoom meetings with her buyer's agents and also with the VAs. They have affirmations. They have you can develop the culture. You don't need a fancy office to have a culture. It's basically within your organizational spirit. So you can create it online. You can create it in a community you have. You can also create it like in the office, like you're doing. Sounds like you're doing a great job because people love to work for you. But again, you can create it online right now, and especially when the pandemic hit last year. How did you do it? I mean, I don't know what state you're in, but I suspect you probably were not operating out of the office, right?
Well, I mean, we actually were kind of an exception. We were exempted from all the lockdown stuff.
Nice.
And our employees chose to mostly remain here. But to your point, my wife, for example, works at a law firm, and they all went completely remote.
Yeah.
And they were doing like virtual happy hours and stuff like that. So, that's how she stayed in the loop of her culture's, her firm's culture.
Yeah.
That kind of made me, something just clicked for me right now. I guess when I think virtual assistant, I think you go to Fiverr, you have somebody create a a graphic for you, and then you probably don't talk to that person again. But the way that you were describing this, you're building a relationship with these assistants, and they're part of they're a part of your team, right?
100%.
How many different clients on average do one of your virtual assistants work for, or are these like maybe part-time employees or full-time employees that are just working with one person?
Yeah, they're working with one person. If it's let's say virtual assistant, he's working like 40 hours a week. He's working for that one person. If he's hired, I mean, usually one or two, because they cannot work more than like 40 hours a week because they're humans and they need time to rest, obviously. So at most they have like 2 clients at a time, like 20 hours each, or have one client for 40 hours a week. So he's essentially becoming an integral part of your team.
It's probably worth explaining really quickly because Ricardo looks puzzled. Most people work 40 hours, Ricardo.
Yeah, labor laws are overrated.
Oh, busted.
He's like, well, I feel like I've really put in a full week. I'm going to show myself out.
Oh, it's awesome.
That's really interesting. And Scott, the same thing sort of clicked for me as Pavel was talking, because I was thinking virtual assistants are people you use for tasks. You don't bring them to your team meetings. Like that's weird. But I guess I just have an outside view of this.
You do bring them to your meetings, and that when you actually, because especially if you're operating a hybrid kind of a office, virtual and in-house, like we do here at VirtuDesk, we have a hybrid. We have people in-house, and we have people in the Philippines in the operational side and the marketing side. I also own a real estate brokerage, which I'm not involved in, but we have a designated broker who's running it, and she has virtual assistants. And the way it's done, again, we have in-house people for that, and we have virtual assistants for that, and they all working together, because only that your VA would be more productive and more successful for your company if they're going to be involved. They not like a technical, like getting the task, bada bam, bada boom, and that's it. They are more involved than that.
So Ricardo mentioned there was another virtual assistant company that was all like military wives, and I thought that was really interesting. Pavel, what kind of people do you see that want to become virtual assistants? Are they like stay-at-home moms, or are they, they're not people with no skills, or just people that are highly efficient virtual, right?
Yeah. Well, we hire in the Philippines. We have a company in the Philippines, and mostly we hire people from call center industry, because they worked for different companies like Bank of America, American Express, Chase. They work for on the phones, or they work for corporations. They're doing in-house stuff, office stuff. But however, when everything went into the lockdown, the Philippines had the strictest lockdown in Southeast Asia. I mean, they're still in lockdown. So a lot of those companies shut their doors, and those people need to get work. They need bills to pay. So they go work as virtual assistants, and we hire people who obviously have experience, who've worked in the Fortune 500 companies, who speak good English, who, basically a lot of them have college education, and they constantly improving their skills on video editing, because there's a lot of demand we see right now for that, or social media. They improve the skills on how to create Facebook ads, how to run Facebook ads, how to generate leads, because this is where a lot of demands. Also, those who work on CRM, certain CRMs, like for KW, we are very in tune with KW Command, because we had a lot of KW clients, Keller Williams clients, who using their CRM, and those agents don't know how to use their CRM, so they hire a VA to do that. So we had to master that for them.
Honestly, the biggest objections I hear are, A, how do I know they're going to do a good job? Or like, can they do as good a job as I can, is probably the biggest misconception.
Mm-hmm.
And then B, it's how do I know that person knows what they're doing? Like I had an agent once, we're getting ready to run their ads or help them run their ads. And I said, I'm going to pass you off to Noah. He's going to help you the rest of the way. And it was this big diatribe. How do I know he knows what he's doing? Right. So there's always those two sorts of hesitations.
Was it super awkward for you when they found? Just kidding.
But but really, those are two, I think, at my last software company, our CEO always said, everything that you do, document it. Everything.
Oh, yeah.
You're setting up documentation, record it, and write it down. It made it easier for us to onboard new employees because now they had a video that walked them through the process. This is how we do X. And we had technical documentation that we wrote and published on the website. Like having your VA do those things is the exact same process. You're going to teach them that stuff anyway. Why not record a Loom video that explains how to do it? Write a checklist of how you prefer to get it done. And, ta-da, you're done. You're setting them up for success.
And this is a really big one. Yeah, Ricardo, I agree.
Ricardo, I think you just hit on pretty much the secret sauce on making this entire thing work is you have to do a little bit of prep work in order to get the highest level of efficiency out of your virtual assistant or out of anybody working remote, right? And it's kind of that point where we try to do everything ourselves and you can't ever delegate anything because it's not written down and it's not documented. You don't have processes and systems, but creating those processes and systems is what takes your business to that next level. And as soon as you document those processes and systems, you can find somebody to do those things for you to free you up to do more money-making activities.
I mean, think about how we hired Nick, who does the post-production, writes the blog post, creates the social graphics for this podcast. Yep. We literally have never spoken to him, but what did we do? We gave him a Google Doc with step-by-step instructions on all the things we wanted, the things we wanted him to do. And our emphasis was, hey, we're too busy to do this ourselves.
We're lazy.
We're lazy. Don't bother us. And it'd be awesome if you can help us get this done. Like how awesome is that?
Exactly.
How awesome is that though? And then, I've hired people off of Fiverr to design stuff for me. Like earlier this week, I think Monday or Tuesday, I wasted 2 to 3 hours of my life trying to design something. And I thought to myself, what the hell am I doing? I went on Fiverr, hired somebody to get it done in less than half an hour for $20.
That sounds like a long 5-hour work week for you.
also keep in mind, if something happens to Nick, God forbid, he gets hit by a bus, you have somebody to step in and actually look at the spreadsheets that he created, the documentation, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel. The process is already can be replicated,
Which speaks to employee turnover. What happens when you hire that employee and they want to leave because they want to get their license?
Exactly.
Well, at least we have it documented.
How many people that the first step of hiring a virtual assistant is documenting what the virtual assistant's going to do? Like having a virtual assistant
not many.
You pretty much have to have that figured out.
Yeah. I mean, we help them figure it out. And sometimes if they hire like a highly functioning VA, that VA usually would create some sort of cheat sheets for her, like what needs to be done according. And sometimes the client is just surprised that she actually has it already. Like she's been working for him like for a couple of months and she's got all the cheat sheets already in the Google Sheet. He looks at it like, oh, wow, bam, it's already been done.
Wow.
So, okay, so Pavel, here's something I'm working through. So what if I'm in a situation where I like the in-between place of me doing it myself and me having a full-time employee is that some weeks the thing I'm trying to hire out for takes me like 25 hours. And some weeks it takes me 3. And so I don't know that I totally feel comfortable bringing on a full-time person, but I don't always have the time to do the things myself. Am I a bad person if I go to a company like yours and I say, hey, I need a virtual assistant and I can't promise consistent work?
No, it's actually, we even have a program for that. It's called Time Block. Time Block, it's basically you prepay a certain number of hours a month, like 20 hours a month or 30 hours a month. And it's on a need basis, like a project basis. Let's say you need this work. This work will take 10 hours. This project will take 5 hours of VA time. So you just basically kind of come and prepay for that, and you use it up according to what you need. So we have a solution for that.
Yeah,
it's like Fiverr kind of thing.
Powerful, because I mean, as soon as you hire an employee, right? Obviously, you
got to keep them busy. Yeah,
you got to keep them busy.
Yeah. So we have that, and because of your kind of a use case situation, we've encountered that we came up with a time block, just to basically meet the demand that we had for that. But again, those people who come in with a time block, and they just usually convert to like part-time down the road, so it's a good way for us to kind of get people who don't have enough of work done right now to get them in more involved. Yeah.
So here's another risk point along those lines. So let's assume that the thing I'm talking about that sometimes takes me 3 hours and sometimes takes me 20 hours is negotiating contracts, right? Or filling out paperwork and making sure people get it signed and follow-ups and that kind of stuff. You're a real estate agent. It sounds like you work primarily with real estate agents. Have you noticed that the real estate agents that take the risk, do the time block, or maybe even have a dedicated virtual assistant, that they have an increase in their overall business?
They do usually, yeah. They do see increase in overall business. And how I started with VA myself, when I was actually selling real estate, I got a VA to do prospecting. And I was talking to Ricardo yesterday. I explained to him how it worked. She was scheduling appointments for me to go to expireds and for sale by owners. So what I did, I was actually just only driving around town, meeting with prospects, talking to them about their properties and getting them to sign the listing agreement. What she did, she was just prospecting, getting the appointments on my calendar. So I walk out of another house and I head out to another appointment. So at that point, when I was only engaging in, I didn't do any prospecting myself, but I was just basically meeting with people, getting them to sign in a dotted line, and moved on to the next. But what I experienced that I needed more help because I was signing all those contracts. I needed somebody actually in the back end of my office to handle those contracts, like a TC or an admin. I needed to put them on an MLS. I needed somebody to take pictures of the house. I needed to schedule, the photography, the sign installation, the lockbox, all that other stuff, do some marketing. But so hiring one...
That's a lot of stuff.
Yeah. So hiring one person to do prospecting for me kind of generated all other needs that needed to be filled.
Sounds like to me is you recognize your superpower, which is having conversations and getting the signature, and you delegate everything else.
Exactly, because listen, I'm meeting with a prospect, getting them to list a house. I needed somebody to order title. I needed somebody to open escrow, do all other stuff, Because again, I'm only just scanning in the contract to her, and boom, that's it. She's doing everything else. And again, I'm checking in with a client, I'm checking in with a seller and negotiating the offer when the offer comes in. This is my job as a real estate agent. I'm negotiating stuff and closing deals, because as I told Ricardo yesterday, what real estate agent what highly functioning real estate agents should be doing is, meeting with clients, working with clients, either showing homes or talking to them, developing the relationship. Negotiating deals means working with other agent on the other side, negotiating inspection items, price increases, decreases, and closing deals, making sure the deal gets closed.
Not chasing down leads.
Yeah, but there's a lot of things on the way that actually preventing agents from doing that, because agents are engaged in other activity. Why a lot of agents are working like 60, 70, 80 hours a week? Because they also do prospecting. They do, they have to do paperwork. They have to do marketing. They have to, schedule open houses. They have to promote open houses. They have to go to social media to get it done. And if you're like driving around, especially if you're working with buyers, if you're driving around, that's impossible to do it. You got to have somebody on the back end to actually help you do it.
Right. Well, part of what I was trying to drive at too with that question is I'm trying to get a sense from a spend perspective, right? So I'm the CEO of the company. I'm looking at our P&L. right? And so if I'm going to put some money into a virtual assistant, I want to know that it's going to come back to me in the form of increased revenue. And I assume most real estate agents are like that too, right? So
Oh yeah, of
maybe a
course.
whole lot of people can sympathize with, yeah, I'm doing a lot of things and it makes me tired. I'm working 60-hour weeks. And sure, I could hire a virtual assistant and work maybe 40-hour weeks like a normal human being. But now, I'm taking a look at my net revenue, and man, it's going to be even lower because I'm hiring a virtual assistant. But what I hear you saying is that actually that net number will probably increase. Yeah, you're going to pay for the virtual assistant, but you're going to make money because
The KPI will increase it. Exactly.
Yeah, that's interesting. Ricardo, you want to read this comment, or whoever?
Yeah, this one's from Jennifer Wilson. She says that doing the paperwork for my clients has freed up a ton of time for them to focus on more face-to-face time with their clients. I mean, that to me is it right there.
Yeah.
Highest and best use of time.
Yeah, I mean, best and just be deductive. Yeah, I understand a lot of people look at the hiring somebody, whether it's employee or contractor or virtual assistant, as a liability. However, I look at it as getting an asset who will free up your time to do more stuff. And once you're actually freed up to do income producing activity, if you're good at it, you basically will generate more business.
Yeah, absolutely. That's that hump that entrepreneurs, solopreneurs have to overcome in order to grow their business. You just have to. Every single entrepreneur has to at some point start taking stuff off of their plate so that they can start focusing on money making activities. And based on this conversation, this is a really interesting conversation for the the way we came down to the wire on what we were going to talk about today, because we're really dismantling a lot of concerns that I kind of had, and that I was kind of thinking about what would prevent you from outsourcing these things to virtual assistants. Dustin mentioned the cost on this, and Pavel, you had mentioned the cost of having an employee. How do you think it compares to? I mean, is it almost the same cost to hire a VA, but you just don't have all of the responsibility and baggage, or is it a little bit less? Or
it's less. It's actually less. Yeah, it's. I don't know where you are located geographically, but I assume you probably minimum wage starts about $15-16 an hour where you are at.
To be $15 an hour nationwide, so.
It's going to be, yeah. When you hire a VA, let's say you hire a VA from us, so we started I think $9 an hour. Okay, that's what happens, and you don't but again, if you hire an employee for $15 an hour, well, number one, good luck getting somebody good at that rate if it's going to be minimum wage. But you also have payroll tax, which not a lot of people even thinking about it. When you bring in employee, you gotta pay more than what you actually pay what you think you're gonna be paying. Sometimes you need to bring the benefits to do that as well. So all of that comes up to, if it's $15 an hour, it's probably gonna come down to 25 with all the fringe benefits.
You had also mentioned maybe kind of a more advanced virtual assistant that maybe has advanced marketing skills or something like that. Is there a range of experience level that you?
Yes, because what we have is called a GVA, General Virtual Assistant. Those starts for $9-10 an hour, and we have EVA. It's Executive Virtual Assistants. It's more of a high-end person who went through more enhanced training and has relevant experience that you need. You need somebody to get on the phones, or somebody who would be more of a director of operations for you. But those usually we start them I think $11 an hour. It's still going to be less than what you would pay.
Wow.
15 nationally. I don't know if it's going to go through, but who knows?
Okay, so what if I'm really good at one thing? So I'm really good at the human relationships and sort of deal management flow of a real estate transaction. In other words, I'm really great getting in a room and talking to people, and I'm really great at everything after getting that contract signed. But what I'm terrible at is consistent prospecting. I'm really terrible. I don't like cold calling. I don't I don't have a good system for it. I don't know how to coach somebody on how to do cold calling. Is a virtual assistant from like a company like yours the kind of place I could go and just be really honest and be like, look, I don't know how to do cold calling. I'm really terrible at it, and I need someone to do cold calling for me.
I'll expire.
Or expire. Yeah. Do you have somebody that knows what they're doing that can walk in with a system ready to go? Or do you expect me to already have the system and to train them from absolute zero?
Yes and no. And let me explain to you. We have a training department that actually trains them on that. Also, we have people who worked for agents before, and they have relevant experience working for people like you and doing prospecting. And by the way, it's a good point that you pointed out that if you're good at one thing, and I usually tell people, do not outsource things that you're good at. Outsource things that you're not so good at. So if you're not good at cold calling, you're hiring somebody who's good at it. So we have systems in place we can recommend you, like a dialer, for example, because sometimes people don't have a dialer, they don't have CRM, they don't have anything. So we help you set those up because we've worked with many customers who don't have it, so we kind of know what needs to go into that. If you have your own, that's great, that's perfect. We'll just use yours. If you don't, we'll recommend you which ones to get, whether it's a Mojo or it's other dialer platform or it's a RedX, Vulcan 7, whatever works in your market. Also, if it's a prospecting for your market specific, we have people, it's called a SME, subject matter experts. Let's say your VA is prospecting and she's not quite sure about something. Let's say, like when I was selling, I did a lot of pre-foreclosures because I was listing them, and the best part is nobody was calling them. So we were the ones calling them. But let's say you were doing pre-foreclosures, and it's not very common to call pre-foreclosures. So we have SMEs who've done it before. So let's say you hire a VA, but this VA is not familiar with pre-foreclosure script. She can go and have a session with one of our SMEs who will uptrain her and give her some coaching on how to get it done. If you need to, and again, you'd probably need to listen in. You'd probably need to do some tweaks on the script on which you want it to sound, because she's going to be representing your brand. And I was telling you, Ricardo, yesterday, it's not exactly plug and play model. You got to work with them also hand in hand sometimes,
No, but for the scenario you described, Dustin, if I, hated being on the phones, that's somebody that I would hire to take care of my circle prospecting calls on a new listing I have at, over at 123 Main Street.
Yeah.
Oh, that's easy. Yeah, that's easy. That's basically circle prospecting. Just call them and say, hey, we've got a listing in the area. Anybody who wants to, live in your neighborhood, or anybody thinking of selling? Are you thinking of moving? Would you like to find out how much your house would sell for? Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Pavel, you mentioned listening in. So when you have somebody making calls for you, those calls are recorded. And is that what's happening? So you can listen, you can listen to the calls and make sure that understand what they're saying, how they're talking to people.
Depending on your state laws, some states require two-party consent to record.
Okay.
So we kind of, like California requires two-party consent. So you have to tell them that your call is recorded. But again, good luck getting a listing if you tell that.
Recorded for quality assurance purposes.
Yeah. Imagine telling that. Yeah. So we kind of like say, listen, it's up to you if you wanted to provide that disclosure or if you want to record. Okay.
Okay.
Some states don't have two-party consent, and you can just basically have VA record the conversation, and she can send you the files of conversations she had with leads, so you can listen in what they're saying or how they're saying it. But again, it's if you choose to have them recorded, you can have them recorded.
So with a company like yours, a professional virtual assistance company, what kind of accountability mechanisms or reporting would the agent have to kind of go in there and see how much time has been spent on what projects, what the results are? What does that look like? The accountability piece.
Oh, yeah. We have a proprietary software that we've developed. It's called Timely. that you have an access to it, and whenever your VA logs in, you see when they logged in, logged out, took a break, and you see the screenshots of what they're doing. So if anybody's chatting on Facebook about irrelevant stuff, you're gonna know that, because the only way a VA can actually work if they're untimely.
Okay.
That's how they get paid.
Have you ever had a virtual assistant that realized they were online and they were goofing around with their friends?
We saw a guy like ended the shift and forgot to log out, and he went to the adult sites, and
Pornhub pops up and you're reporting. Oh,
yeah. But that's just it happens, But but the best part is you can see what they're doing, because you get the screenshots. Also, we have coaches. Every VA is assigned to a team where there is a coach, overseeing what's going on and helping him out. Also, we have a workforce manager, because you're making sure that your VA is on time, your VA is not MIA, the VA is not late, and if they do come in late, we are more proactive sometimes than the clients, because we see what's going on. This is our job to make sure that they're monitored. Yeah.
So maybe one of the hardest things, going back to the conversation about employee versus virtual, is if you make a hiring mistake for an employee and they end up just sucking, it sucks even worse to have to fire them. Yeah. But like if you're working with a VA and you're like not 100% happy, you can call and say, hey, you know what? I don't feel like I'm clicking with this person. Can you assign me to a new VA? And you don't have to fire them.
You don't have to explain yourself to the VA. It's basically you tell us and we do the rest. We handle it. We deal with the VA and we get you the replacement.
Oh, that's the price of admission right there.
Can I hire a VA to fire Ricardo?
That's awesome.
Unrelatedly, there's a job posting for a new co-host.
That's awesome.
That's a really good point, because as the CEO of this company, one of my least favorite things to do is fire people.
I get it.
Yeah.
It's the hardest thing. It's the hardest.
I hate it, man. I hate it.
Good people, they're just not doing a great job.
Yeah, I hate doing it too, man.
Yeah, well,
that's why I usually have somebody else do it for me.
Like I could fire Ricardo, no problem. But I mean, other people I like be harder to fire. And you get to know people's stories. You get to know, what the means to them. Yeah. Virtual assistant, you do have a bit of that distance. One thing you said to me earlier, you said to all of us earlier in this conversation, though, is that at your personal company, where you hire out virtual assistants, you have virtual assistants and employees. So I'm curious to know, how do you personally make the distinction between when it's right to hire a virtual assistant and when it's right to hire an employee?
Well, we hired for things like, let's say we have a marketing department for VirtuDesk. We have a hybrid. We have VAs who are doing the tasks that in-house people are assigning them. And because again, for marketing, we do believe you need to have a hybrid model, because you need to have people in-house as well, because of the cultural things, understanding the mentality of a customer. So that, I believe, actually having somebody in-house. As I told, my marketing coordinator, Audrey, you met her yesterday, Ricardo. She's like asking me, why did you hire me? So I hired you for your brain. What do you think? But basically, and again, she's working with VAs. She has several VAs that she's working with. She has a specific person assigned to email funnels. She's got her person, but making the distinction is basically, again, how much you grow, because I saw agents getting a virtual assistant, everything going great. They say, okay, now I need to hire somebody in-house. So I need to fire a VA. So, okay, tell me why you're doing that. It's like, well, I've grown, so I have more money, so I can hire somebody in-house. I say, it sounds awesome. So does this mean you're growing, or does it mean you're just spending more money?
Well, and that example was great for the scenario that you brought up, Dustin. Maybe he does hire a marketing director that's directly accountable, and they can be face to face. They can brainstorm on the branding and the messaging.
Yeah.
And then that manager just manages a team of virtual assistants to do all of the tasks,
to execute the tasks,
the tasks that are necessary. Yeah. That's the hybrid. Listen, the answer is always somewhere in between. In almost any situation, it's like it's never all the way this way or all the way that way. It's usually some sort of hybrid, and I'm glad you're saying that, because I think that's really, really valuable. It's not, do I outsource all of my business or not? It's where on the fringes of the tedious tasks or the replicatable tasks and activities that need to be done every day or every week. How can I outsource those, save some money, be more productive, and have a hybrid business model? This is interesting. This feels like an extension of last week's episode. Give myself a raise. This is like give yourself a raise part 2, right? Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting approach, because you know what it feels like too, Scott, is it feels like that episode we did a couple of weeks ago where we said that it was Noah's clever line. Marketing is only an expense if you suck at it, right?
Right.
Maybe virtual assistants are only an expense if you suck at it, right? And so I think for example, just in this conversation, I began to see some opportunities for virtual assistants within my own escrow company. Especially on the social media front and kind of elsewhere, where Pavel was talking about how they have subject matter experts who would be able to come into a situation like I don't know how to do social media well, especially if social media involves TikTok, which is terrible.
We actually had an title escrow company hiring our VAs, and what they hired them for, schedule appointments for reps to meet with realtors.
Okay, so that's funny, because I was going to reach out to you about that very thing. So how did that work out? Like, you guys,
that's awesome.
Tell me more.
Yeah, because apparently reps were not doing their job.
Well, look, I mean, honestly, I've worked with a lot of salespeople in this industry, and during the interview, they all tell me the same thing. Cold calling, no problem. I'm so good at it. I love doing it. But when they need them to cold call and report their cold calling numbers, it does not happen. And, I've asked, it's not just my company. I've asked, other people at other companies that are in my position and whatever, they all say the same thing.
I'll give you a couple ideas. The company that our client, what they did, they hired escrow, title and escrow. Okay. So they hired VA to schedule appointments with realtors for reps, so reps can meet with them and develop the relationship. And what they did, that was actually in Arizona, I think it was in Phoenix market, they had a VA calling for sale by owners and schedule an appointment with the reps, because either they sell with an agent or without an agent, they still need to have a title and escrow. And 80% of those people have no idea what escrow is, those who are doing for sale by owners. So a VA calls in and say, well, I'm not an agent, I'm not going to ask you for a listing, but who do you use for escrow and title? And it's like, It's like, well, good idea. Why don't you just meet with our representative? Because you need to have somebody provide you title insurance. You need to have somebody handle the escrow. Will I like to meet with somebody? And what happens is either they find a buyer, by themselves, or they hire an agent, but their rep already developed the relationship with the seller. So, or sometimes the rep is already working in cahoots with an agent, so they can do a soft closing for the listing. So that's value for the agent, and the escrow rep or title rep actually gets that account.
I really want to ask you more questions, and also I want to get offline.
I was just gonna say, Dustin, like
in the spirit of generosity, I want to keep asking you questions. The spirit of my competition might be listening. I think this is a terrible idea. None of you guys should talk to Pavel. No, but that's really interesting too, that you guys are able to adapt to a non-traditional situation, because I don't know too many escrow companies that are that hire out that sort of cold calling function. And the FSBO stuff in particular is, that's something we were looking at doing internally anyway. And so, that's really cool. And that also personally alleviates my fear, again, going back to, you guys have those subject matter experts, because I don't want to In my head, when I think about hiring a virtual assistant, I think about somebody with an accent calling some random person unannounced and uninvitedly with my company's brand behind them. And I'm like, oh, that just feels really uncomfortable. But I think that that's because either I'm a racist, like Ricardo says, or I think I just have an outdated understanding of like who these people are. And
it depends. Again, it depends. Well, we hire people with neutral accents because they all come from from call center industry.
Yeah.
Okay. However, some of them actually have. I mean, I don't know if you know what the Filipinos sound like, but they have more of a like. I would say like almost like a Hispanic accent sometimes. If you're like in California, Florida, Texas, New York, it doesn't really matter. Washington State doesn't matter.
Right.
Middle of the country, it may be a little bit iffy. So we had people in South Carolina, North Carolina, that were like, nah, we need somebody actually sounding American, So it's fine. It depends where you're at. But we do have people with, minimal accent or no accent or neutral accent. But again, it depends where you are in the country. As Ricardo said,
is that something that you would consider? Somebody calls from North Carolina and they're like, hey, do you have anybody with a little bit of a Southern drawl or something like that? Is that ever a request?
I'll tell you what. No, we didn't have that, but we had a girl once. She worked Australian account. So she's a Filipino, but she sounded like Aussie. So she got hired by a dude in the Florida Panhandle to do prospecting with Australian accent.
That's awesome.
About a year down the road, she developed the Florida talk.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So she sounded like an 80-year-old redneck.
She was getting him listing in a Panhandle.
Wow,
that's awesome. That is really, really cool.
And people actually like to talk to her.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
man. This has been an amazing conversation.
I just want to flip Florida for like 5 minutes now. That's all I want.
Yeah.
I'm going next week to Florida.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Actually, I am too. 2 weeks.
Are you really?
Yeah.
I am going to Florida next week to find a house there. Yeah.
Wow.
You guys let me know what freedom is like, because in California, I don't know anymore.
That's exactly why I'm going there. Yeah. I want to go to a bar. I want to go to a bar normally, guys.
Oh my gosh.
Just go to Ricardo's house. It's like an open bar.
It's like open bar, right?
Well, it's been really great talking with you. Can you tell people where to find you, how to find your company, all that?
It's called VirtueDesk. They can go to Google, type VirtueDesk, VIRDUESK, or myvirtuedesk.com. Also, next week we're gonna have an event with Tom Ferry. It's called Leverage Mastermind. So go to Facebook group Leverage, type Leverage, join the group, and there's all information there. And Ricardo, maybe we can send you the link for registration. Yep. People can register. Audrey can send it to you.
Yep, please do.
All right, sounds good.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me.
Yeah.
So if you enjoyed this episode with Pavel and you want to check out other episodes where we say things that are sometimes interesting and mostly not, you can go to marketingtrench.fm. Check out all of our past episodes. We talk about how to use your database, how to set up a database, how to identify your 90-20 client or your 80-20 clients using the Pareto principle. And that would be some good examples. If you've got a database sitting around or you're just building your database, you want to reach out to your top 20% clients. Maybe this is a great opportunity to do a virtual assistant. Put those people to work. So all of that thought leadership there at marketingtrench.fm. If you want to check out our sister podcast, go to realdisrupt.com. We're a part of the Real Disrupt Podcast Collaborative, and there's some great podcasts there for real estate agents, for lenders, and none for escrow, but that's because we're here. So those are the two. And then please, we're trying to build our audience on YouTube. So if you're watching this on YouTube right now, please like and subscribe. That would help us out a lot. We are going to be broadcasting more and more on YouTube, and we got some exciting stuff going on there. So please like and subscribe if you're watching. Until next time, guys, this has been the Marketing Trench.
Yeah.
Thank you.